In tonight's news edition, His Majesty the King says public administration has recently been hit by sagging performance and that public sector excellence should be institutionalized. The chemical weapons watchdog says Syria is cooperating with its mission. And Egypt's ousted President Mohamed Morsi will face trial on November 4 on charges inciting killings at protests. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. His Majesty the King said the Jordanian administration, which had a record of excellence, has recently seen a sagging performance. The King was addressing an ceremony at the King Abdullah II Center for Excellence. Faraj has the story.
Institutionalized excellence in the public sector is a key focus of His Majesty the King to elevate performance in government agencies. The Jordanian administration, the King said, had recently suffered from a bloat, a decline in performance, and unacceptable sagging, a situation that must be remedied and repaired in the interest of the country's present and future. He told a meeting of the Board of Trustees of the King Abdullah II Center for Excellence, "Our primary goal is to provide services to the citizens," but added, "This requires continued improvement in the efficiency and quality of services provided to the public. The culture of excellence should be a conduct, method, and lifestyle for all civil servants," he stressed, and that all should work in concert to serve all citizens. King Abdullah urged the government to consider the center as a tool to evaluate and improve performance and accountability, urging all government agencies for active participation in the center's programs and awards. He stressed cooperation by all public institutions with the center to achieve its objectives. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour said the royal patronage of the ceremony reflects the King's vision to the importance of motivation to render governmental services in a civilized and professional way. The Prime Minister said all laws and regulations enacted by the government remain free unless they are translated on the ground so that citizens can feel their positive impact when it comes to governmental services.
وتنفيذا لتوجيهاتكم.
The government is committed to implementing Your Majesty's directives to launch a wide revolution to elevate the government apparatus through the infusion of a new spirit in government administration and institutionalize world-class practices. The government reiterates its commitment before Your Majesty to carry out an ambitious public sector reform and development program that supplements the parliamentary government experience and constantly upgrade the efficiency and quality of governmental services. The government also adhere to its pledge to institutionalize work in government institutions to improve the citizens' living standards.
Deputy Chairman of the Board of the King Abdullah Center for Excellence, Sharif al-Zabi, said the private sector's participation in the award was below the desired level, despite the benefits that private sector companies could reap in terms of better sales, more profits, and new markets. Following the meeting, the King patronized the ceremony to hand over awards to the winners of the 6th edition of the King Abdullah II Award for Excellence and Transparency, in which 90 public and private institutions participated. Faraj for the news at 10.
His Majesty the King, the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, met senior police officers for a briefing on key areas of the public security strategy for the coming years. At the Public Security Department, the King was briefed by Director General Tawfiq Tawalbe on the 2013-16 security plan, which entails upgrading security centers as well as the results of ongoing security campaigns to curb crime. His Majesty urged officers to pursue the modernization and development drive to enhance the security apparatus capacity to live up to its tasks. He praised the security agency's efforts to achieve the safety and security of citizens and enforce the law on all. King Abdullah also visited the Public Security Department's Desert Brigade in the Badia region, where he watched a drill unit by various units. It included mock security operations through individual and collective performances, using various vehicles with air support that reflected the high professionalism of security personnel. The Desert Brigade was formed as a specialized equipped unit providing police and humanitarian services in the Badia. Jordan urged Israel to carry out international resolutions on the holy city of Jerusalem, the last of which was adopted by the UN Cultural Agency UNESCO. UNESCO's Executive Council voted on Friday to condemn Israeli violations in the holy city. State Minister for Media Affairs and official spokesman Mohammed Momani reiterated that recurrent Israeli attacks on Islamic and Christian holy sites in Jerusalem and unilateral Israeli actions, including settlement policies, would undermine the peace process. Momani said Israel's insistence on allowing extremist Jews into Al-Aqsa Mosque grounds would ignite religious conflict and is considered a flagrant challenge to Muslim feelings. The head of the global chemical weapons watchdog said Syrian officials have been constructive and cooperative in the early stages of the program to destroy Syria's chemical weapons arsenal. Clashes, meanwhile, continued in the battered Syrian town of Marrat al-Nu'man in southern Idlib. 2 motor bombs fired from Syria hit an Israeli military base in the Golan Heights, wounding an Israeli soldier. Hala Dababne had the details.
A nuclear disarmament mission in Syria could achieve its target by the middle of next year. The Director General of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons said experts aim to visit 20 sites in days and weeks.
If we can ensure some cooperation by all parties, and if some temporary ceasefires, in fact, could be established in order to permit our experts to work in a permissive environment, I think the targets could be reached.
Syria submitted a declaration of its chemical weapons arsenal to the OPCW last month, but details have not been disclosed. Chemical weapons experts believe Syria has roughly 1,000 tons of sarin, mustard, and VX nerve gas, some of it stored as bulk raw chemicals, and some already loaded onto missiles, warheads, or rockets. Under a Russian-US deal brokered last month, Syria must render useless all production facilities and weapons development by November. Its entire chemical weapons program must be destroyed by June 30th, 2013. The team in Syria, now consisting of 27 field experts, will enter only those areas where inspectors will be safe. For the field team's access to areas where hostilities are continuing, the Syrian government and the United Nations will need to negotiate ceasefires with rebel forces. As the inspection work was underway, clashes between rebel soldiers and forces loyal to the Syrian president broke out in the town of Marrat al-Nu'man in southern Idlib province. The town is strategically situated on the Damascus-Aleppo highway. It has been a point of contention between the two sides for months. Many areas of the battered town were reduced to rubble as rebel soldiers fired artillery and smoke rose over the town. The sound of gunfire and explosions fills the air. Rebel soldiers say they are attempting to take over the military bases of Wadi al-Dayf and Al-Hamidiyah. As the conflict raged in Syria, 2 mortar bombs hit an Israeli military post on the occupied Golan Heights, wounding an Israeli soldier. The military said the mortars were stray fire from Syria's civil war. Israel's defense minister said he would not tolerate any spillover from the Syrian conflict, signaling a policy of swift retaliation for any fire into the Golan Heights. Hala Dababne, News at 10.
Egypt's Army Chief General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said that now is the wrong time to raise the issue of whether or not he would stand for the presidency. But in an interview with an Egyptian newspaper, Sisi did not rule out taking part in any contest. Speculation has been rising that the former military intelligence officer could participate in upcoming elections. Meanwhile, an Egyptian court set November the 4th as the date for the trial of deposed President Mohamed Morsi and other senior figures in the Muslim Brotherhood on charges of inciting violence. The trial could further inflame tensions between the Islamist movement and the interim government and deepen the political instability that has affected tourism and investment in the most populous Arab state. Amid the tension The United States said it will announce the future of its assistance to Egypt after making appropriate diplomatic and congressional notifications. White House spokesman Jay Carney said Washington would continue to work with Egypt's interim government. The World Bank said the Palestinian economy in the Israeli-occupied West Bank shrank for the first time in a decade in the first half of this year. It blamed the decline in foreign aid and restrictions imposed by Israel. Israel's foreign ministry said Palestinian and Israeli negotiators will examine problems raised by the World Bank report in peace talks underway. Meanwhile, the permanent observer of Palestine at the United Nations, Riyad Mansour, said Palestinians will never abandon the right of the refugees to return nor recognize Israel as a Jewish state. He spoke at an international media seminar on peace in the Middle East held in Ankara, responding to a poll which pointed out that any failure in the peace process will cause a third uprising in Palestine.
Well, the Palestinian people are struggling to put an occupation and to have independence. So if this effort of negotiation is not going to take us there and people are frustrated, then you will see a lot of frustration in the streets, and it will express itself in the way that the people would like it to be expressed. I don't know exactly how it will be expressed.
European Commission President José Manuel Barroso vowed to step up efforts to stem the region's long-running immigration crisis. He spoke during a visit to the Italian island of Lampedusa, where a migrant boat sank last week, killing hundreds. Italian police have arrested a Tunisian suspect of being the driver of the boat. We get more in this report.
This picturesque Mediterranean setting, Italian divers work into the night, bringing the bodies of migrants ashore. 155 people have been pulled out alive after a boat sank just off the coast of Lampedusa last week. More than 200 bodies have been found, and it's feared that around 100 people have drowned. A Tunisian man suspected of driving the vessel was found among survivors and arrested. The boat, carrying migrants mostly from Eritrea and Somalia, is believed to have capsized when everyone moved to one side to avoid a fire. The European Commission President and the Italian Prime Minister visited the island to pay their respects. Italy is asking for EU support to deal with the influx of migrants and an overhaul of immigration rules. But residents shouted at them, calling them idiots.
They're coming onto the island for what? To see that everyone is dead? This is completely wrong that they're coming.
It's one of the worst single disasters of migrants risking a dangerous crossing in search of a new life in Europe. Lampedusa, halfway between Sicily and Tunisia, has become one of the main entry points from Africa. Yet still, despite the disaster, hundreds of migrants continue to arrive on these Italian shores every day.
The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, began a two-day regional summit in Brunei. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry will press Southeast Asian leaders and China to discuss the South China Sea dispute at the summit. Beijing is reluctant to address the issue in public forums. Kerry, who represented President Barack Obama, would urge ASEAN members to continue to work for enhanced coherence and unity to strengthen their position with China.
The ties among our nations, I think all of you know this from the engagement that we have on individual basis with you as well as collectively through ASEAN, that those ties have been strong for decades now, and we know that strengthening those ties on security issues, on economic issues, and more, on our people-to-people relationships, are a critical part of President Obama's rebalance to Asia. That rebalance is a commitment. It is there to stay.
9 people were killed in a fire at a garment factory in the Bangladeshi town of Ghazipur, north of the capital, Dhaka. A series of deadly incidents at Bangladeshi factories, including a building collapse in April that killed more than 1,100 people, has raised global concern over safety standards in the country's booming garment industry. About 50 workers were injured in the fire, the cause of which has yet to be determined. Three scientists from the United States have won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry this year. It was a recognition of their pioneering computer analysis work that simulates complex chemical processes and has accelerated progress in areas from drugs to solar energy. The awarding of the prize of $1.25 million, the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences said the work of Martin Kurplus, Michael Lovett, and Are Warshel had effectively taken chemistry into cyberspace. The committee said the laureates had made it possible to map the mysterious ways of chemistry by using computers.
In short, what we develop is a way which requires a computer to take the structure of a protein and then to eventually understand how exactly it does what it does. Like if you have an enzyme that digests food and the structure exists, you want to understand how this is happening, and then you could use it, for example, to design drugs, or just, like in my case, to satisfy your curiosity.
Novak Djokovic began his Shanghai Masters title defense today with a 6-2, 6-love victory over Marcel Granollers. The Serb needed just 71 minutes to beat the Spaniard, converting 5 of his 10 break points to register his 8th win in a row. Djokovic will go on next to face Italian Fabio Fognini in the next round.
Game, set, and match, Djokovic.
NBA players are still in action, but not on the official basketball courts. The Indiana Pacers and Houston Rockets conducted basketball clinics for children a day before the first NBA preseason match in the Philippines. Both teams held clinics in Manila, with the Pacers teaching special needs children at the Seaside Stadium and the Rockets teaching the basics of the game to students of a local public school. NBA legends Ron Harper and Clyde Drexler joined 2 players from the Rockets as they went to a crowded public school, sharing their expertise to the of children. The players taught the children basic drills while giving students tips on becoming a good athlete. The game in the Philippines is part of NBA's comprehensive Global Games initiative, which features 8 preseason games in 8 cities across 6 countries this month. And finally, relatively cool night in most regions with southeasterly light winds. Tomorrow, a slight rise in temperatures expected. Therefore, it will be mild in most parts of the country and relatively hot in the Jordan Valley. Winds will be easterly to southeasterly brisk. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect a cool night and hot day tomorrow, with northerly moderate winds picking up at times and slightly choppy seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end the news, here's a reminder of our top stories. His Majesty the King says public administration has recently been hit by performance and that public sector excellence should be institutionalized. The chemical weapons watchdog says Syria is cooperating with its mission. And Egypt's ousted President Mohamed Morsi will face trial on November 4 on charges of inciting killings at protests. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Nancy Khair. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.